a perfect 10. I wanna get in. Can I get down so I can win? I like the way you work it. I got to back it up. DC! I like the way you work it. Sing! I got to back it up. What's the word? I like the way you work it.
Was this young boy jumping around and later answering a question who left Liddy speechless?
Are most of the kids in favor of the picketing?
Yep.
How come?
I think they should get a better education too, and I think they should get some more money, cause they be working extra hours for us and all that stuff.
Get ready. Brand new dance. Ain't talking about the housequake. Ain't talking about shake it, baby. Talking about the thing.
And I don't know if it was second album or first album, but I'll tell you a little funny story. It was one of the two albums when the single was going up. I have to go back and do my research about which one, but I don't know why I feel like it would stroke you up, because Craig Coleman said he'd gotten a phone call, and because we were like greatest gainer and beating out, as you go up the chart or whatever, and the phone call was from Prince saying, wow, who is this changing faces? Because Prince had just put something out and we were coming in just like, so I guess he looked at the label and called to find out who and what is changing faces. Because he's like, they're just, you get the greatest gainer, the greatest radio plays, the greatest, so when all those things were coming in, people started like doing research, like who the hell are they?
Because he came out from nowhere. Wow.
From nowhere. Yeah.
Did you ever meet, did you get to meet the great man?
Now, we met him, but by default, it had nothing to do with this. We were doing a studio session. Oh gosh, what's the studio on 8th Street? Jimi Hendrix studio. God, I'm sorry, but it's on 8th Street. It's on 8th Street in the Village. It's Popular Studio. If any musicians or artists are here, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We're there and we're recording, and we're in our studio, and the engineer from the next studio comes and says, we're having technical difficulties in our studio. Would you just mind? We're at the final stages where he just needed to do, the end of his mix, even if it's just for half an hour. Guess who was in that studio? Prince. He came. His studio broke down and they needed to use our studio. So we met him briefly, but I think I was probably so starstruck that I was just and he thanked us for allowing him to use the studio and interrupting our time. But yes.
Was he very? We always see him as this quiet, shy little guy, but
he wasn't a man of many words. He was, thank you guys so much, and it's like, well, you could have the studio, Yeah, Prince, are you kidding me? Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. So we're sitting there like, wow, we just met Prince,
No autographs, no pictures, anything? Or you tried to play it cool?
We tried to play it cool because we were like, we're in the studio and it's like, we don't want to like bombard, which we should have taken advantage and got a picture because we let you use our studio at that time. Yeah. But yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's all good.
I wonder if he remembered that you had changing faces that he called him.
That's what I said. Like after I said the same thing. I wonder if he remembered that he called Craig Coleman. I said the same thing. But he's Prince. He don't remember no little change in faces. But maybe if we would have just had the opportunity to mention it, remember when you called, But,
yeah, if he heard a song, he probably would have just related it.
He would have related it. Yes. Yeah.
You started talking about the industry in a way that you were the first, I think, to talk about the way artists were treated and to reclaim sort of the art by the artist. Since then, around the late 90s, we saw the establishment of the Artist Coalition, for instance, all this dialogue taking place. Did you feel you were alone back then? And did you feel you had something to do with this dialogue taking place now amongst these artists?
Well, Actually, when I would sit down with artists, just hanging out, chilling, not doing anything in particular, we would talk about the trials and tribulations of the industry all the time. And we would talk about ways that we could change things if we had our way. Unfortunately, all of us were signed to these really restrictive agreements where you can't get out of them until you deliver X amount of product. And that product would actually belong to the corporation that you're recording for. Now, the reason why it became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist.
A question article on Billboard magazine. I'm pretty sure you could Google it. And after they did the interview, they say, right now, have you ever heard of Alice, I Want You Just For Me? Incredible record. Right now, Full Force is our favorite group. And I was Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam saying that. I'm like, wow, they're our favorite group right about now. And because of the song Alice, even Prince. It was like Minneapolis loved Alice. So even Prince loved Alice. And I'll never forget, we was at an MTV party, and there's me and my brother sitting at a table, and then all of a sudden Prince walks in with Nnamdi E.S from MTV. Yeah, he walks in with her. And as he walks in with her, and they was going to another section, and me and my boss sitting at the table, Prince takes his hand and he plants it right on my brother's shoulder, like saying, hey, how you doing? And Paul looked up and he said, oh, it's Prince. And then Prince bent down to the both of us and said, hey guys, Alice, I Want You Just For Me. Phenomenal song. And then he got up to start to walk back, and my brother Paul said, hey, can you take a picture? And he said, and we didn't take a picture, but he gave us a compliment on Alice, I Want You Just For Me, Prince. And just the acceptance when he put his hand on my brother's shoulder, and then he bent down and told us that, something that I'll never forget in my life. So at that time, it was people like that. I think the time, but we didn't look at competition. We was just happy to be there. Yeah. We was just so happy to be a part of it and seeing our dream come true.
Prince told me, we hung out one night, man. So when we get to the show, they had us set up at the soundboard. In the middle of every arena, they got a soundboard. And they'll have a few seats there, but it's where the engineers sit. Want to be in the middle of the joint so you can hear everything right. So there's like maybe 10 seats there. So as we were walking to our seat, I bumped the lady in front of me and I said, oh, excuse me, ma'am. And Prince turned around. I said, it's cool, Donnie. It's all right. I said, oh, I'm sorry, Prince. He said, no, it's cool, man.
Oh, goodness.
It was so funny. So a couple minutes later, he turns around and he says, hey, Donnie, you and Ray should come to Paisley Park tonight. We're having a party tonight. I said, okay, we would love to, man. Let's do it. I said, okay. So we go to Paisley Park. The party, man, it can't be but 12, 13 people. It's me, Ray, my producer, David Bowie, 2 or 3 of his bandmates, Prince, Cat, who was a dancer with him at the time. And that's probably about it. And he plays the Black Album. That's what he's playing that night. And that album was notorious because it didn't exist. You know that story for a long time. It wasn't out. And so I said to Prince that night, I said, man, this is such a groove, man, And 3 years later, I run into him somewhere. We're talking. And he says, you know you're the reason the Black album didn't come out, right? I said, why? What do you mean? He says, you remember what you said that night at Paisley Park? You said, this is such a groove. And I was about so much more than that.
Wow.
And that was deep. And I said, I don't know if he means that, if he's just telling me that, you know, but he remembered it because that's what was said. And but then years later, I would think about it. I said, God, you should have thought to tell him, Prince, you shouldn't have given what I said anyway. I don't hear lyrics, bro.
If we get a chance in hall, when the going gets tough, that's when the tough right here. We grind the axe. When I go. The man. Tell me where the party's at. Hey, I wanna shuffle the cards in that stack. We can dance if you want to, but I might break your back. More phone full of pump, you can bet on that. When they tell me to walk a straight line, I put on crooked shoes. When they tell me that I can't live forever, I pay some overdues. When I start making up that crazy road, is when I break a back. When I go.
Check this out. I want to read something for you. Some people find it odd that when we win anything in this game, we give praise back unto God. Well, in somebody else's game, any triumph makes us feel blessed. When it's your game, you make the rules, everything comes easy. All your friends are in key positions, so when you decide you don't want to play anymore, you never leave empty-handed. Can somebody say golden parachute? Well, it's not your game. You didn't make the rules, so everything comes hard. And as long as you're signed to a contract, you're going to take a minority share of the winnings. A select few of us will do well. The majority will not. So as a people, we'll be considered a minority. But stop. Let's take a moment and look at yourselves. There's nothing minor about you. You are a blessed people. You're the most talented on earth, and you are still grateful. That is why upon winning in their game, you always thank God. Tonight I would like to ask one favor of you. Imagine what we'll all be like in our own game. Peace and love for one another.
I begin to